On this episode of Southall Computing, we'll be reviewing and unboxing the Eonon GA2162, and that's coming right up. Hey YouTube, Dan from Southall Computing here today, and we got the latest and greatest from Eonon, the GA2162. If you guys follow along on this channel here, we reviewed an earlier model, the Eonon GA2114, which was running KitKat Android version 444, where the GA2162 here is running Marshmallow 6.0. So, let's get unboxing and see what we got here. Let's go on a road trip. One quick side note is Eonon definitely upgraded their box packaging method here. Basically, this was the original 2114 box, and now the newer one has gotten a little bit more fancier. Okay, so now that we got everything unboxed here, just to show you what it came with. So we have the standard audio video cables and speaker connection, ISO connection. Basically for our setup here, we're going to be putting it in our 2011 Jeep Compass. We actually went ahead and bought some female versions of these ISO connectors so we could easily rewire it into the car without any issues. What else do we have here? Right off the bat, I noticed that we got what looks to be an improved microphone setup here compared to my 2114. I also noticed that everything is coming with 90-degree connectors, which is nice. In the previous models, they basically all protruded out of the back, and depending on whether or not you had enough room in the dashboard, they would possibly flex or sometimes even break these connectors. Didn't happen to me, but it's definitely possible. It actually came with a screen protector, it looks like. That's interesting. Never saw that before. Its own little pry tool. Got plenty of these, but I'll definitely take a spare. Again, 90-degree connector on the GPS sensor. Looks like it's definitely a slightly smaller and not as high sensor as the one that came with my 2114. This is definitely new. This is the Wi-Fi antenna. Oddly enough, on the previous models, they had a little dinky antenna that would stick out in the back. Essentially, it was just a wire. Obviously, that would kill the reception on it, and you're lucky if it got you 50 feet from the Wi-Fi access point in your house there, but this is cool to have, so this way we could actually get some decent range out of this unit. A couple more cables, it looks like here, and what are these here? Oh, little user manuals. That's pretty neat. All different languages, apparently. Over here, the unit is definitely a heck of a lot lighter than the original one, from what I can recall. It's also not as deep. They definitely made some revisions to the actual design here, but as far as the front fascia, it looks pretty similar to the other one. The other one said GPS. This one actually just says SD USB. It's got its little reset button there, power controls and volume control. Used to say, I believe, Navi on here, but now it's just got the little icon that you would find like on Google Maps. A microphone for here in front. On the top of the unit here, we have all the listings for what each cable does in what section, so that's interesting. You find a better layout on the website of what does what on there. As far as the back, you can see the current layout. One of these has got to be for the GPS, the other one for the Wi-Fi, and all the other connectors too. And obviously this one here is for the antenna. Alrighty, so I guess what the next step is, I'm going to start doing the wiring for... Oh, something dropped. Oh, look at that. That's this I did not have in the previous model here. It actually gave screws that you can mount brackets onto the side of the unit, which come in handy because it could be a pain trying to track these down either at your local hardware store or anywhere online. Not sure exactly what these types of screws are called. Okay, so the next step here is we got the ISO connector. We also got the other ends here. Basically, I'm going to wire it into this wiring harness that's specific to my Jeep Compass here, my 2011 Jeep Compass here. As you can see, I had this previously wired for one of those old AVIC units from Pioneer. Just going to reuse this part here and then wire these guys to that so they can plug in to this ISO connection. So that's at least a good, I'm going to say 15 to 20 minutes of wiring, and we'll be right back. As I was sorting through before we start the wiring, I actually was able to finagle a free dash cam recorder camera here. Basically, it said it's only compatible with the 4.4 and 5 versions of Android, but I got this just for giggles to see if this, by some miracle, will work with the Marshmallow OS. If not, oh well, not the worst thing in the world. Got this for free, so no biggie. Oh, and if you want a full description of all the parts that I'm using to get this to be functional in my Jeep Compass 2011, I will post it up on the forum. The link will be down below in the video. One other quick side note, for some silly reason here, they decided to reverse these cables. So I noticed here, for example, when you're looking for matching up your speaker's positive and negative inputs, you see here, this top one here is the black and green, where on this guy here, it's reversed. It seems all the other models were pretty much consistent with the color scheme here, but for some reason this model here, they reversed it. It was just the audio cables for the 4 individual speakers, power, ground, and 12 volt to the battery all stayed the same. So thought it was kind of odd. Just keep a mental note on it. If you're using these generic female adapters here, just be conscious of what colors are where for the speakers, because the polarity on all these speakers are reversed colors. So just keep that in mind when you're hooking them up to your wiring harness for your specific vehicle. Okay, so it's been, I want to say, at least a good month and a half since we've had this head unit installed. And as you can see here, it's back in our good old 2011 Jeep Compass. Right off the bat, we're going to do a time lapse of how quickly this head unit boots. So let's do that right now. Okay, so that took pretty much 1 minute and 10 seconds to fully boot. Not the fastest. Matter of fact, I believe my old KitKat 444 Android model that was rocking the slower processor booted in about 30 seconds. So not too sure what's going on with that. So as you would imagine, I've pretty much customized a lot of this already, and this is the default main screen. It's got this analog clock as well as that date and time and military time and whatnot. Right now we're connected to the home Wi-Fi here, and this is the default media player. So right off the bat, let's just take a look at some settings. Now, I did have to increase the font size on this machine because this super high resolution made everything really tiny and really tough to click. For example, with the default font size, these menu items made it really hard to press, and I don't even have big chubby fingers here. It's kind of surprising they would leave it at such a small default. But under system settings, we could just take a quick peek. And it's pretty much what you would expect with Android 6 or 601. The standard layout for sound, notifications, and everything else. A couple of quick tips here under sounds and notifications. I don't know if you enjoy this feature or not, but reverse mute here, where basically it mutes all radio audio, MP3 player audio, and all that fun stuff. It drives me crazy. I'm going backwards and it mutes my music. Here you can see you can set the standard sound priority and whatnot for that, and here's the properties for that, and we have it on intelligent priority. And you could actually say here where you want, actually, you know what, I want to change that to yeah, no, forget it, we'll keep it on that one. The navigation and ringtones and all that fun stuff, your location, your Google account. A couple of things here, you will need at least 2 passwords for this car unit here. If we go to developer options, for example, that password is 7890. You can say okay, and these are the functions that you can find underneath there. You know, running services obviously could be very useful to see what's going on. And under car settings, if for whatever reason you need to go into extra settings, which you probably will, that one for some reason also requires a password, and this one is 123456. So not the standard Eonon passwords that you would expect to find. And under there you have a bunch of options. The most important one is select radio region. Obviously I'm in the US here, so I had that selected. Resolution, not sure why that's there. The standard 1024 by 600 is what this unit produces. Apparently you're able to go to a lower res, but every time I've selected it, I've never gotten it to function or do anything for that fact there. See, if we click on that, nothing ever happens, so I'm not sure what's up with that. Changing the paneling light color, which is, you know, the buttons on the side of your unit when your lights are on, and everything else that you could find through here. Another one that I like using is the reverse line ruler, where basically gives you the bars when you put the car into reverse with your backup camera. And you got config info, and another nifty one is logo setting. Obviously we're driving a Jeep, so we selected that one. And that's pretty much it for the system settings. I mean, can't expect too much out of that. Yeah, so that's pretty much the standard stuff you would expect to find in Android OS 6. So I really love the speed and snappiness of this particular head unit, especially since the one that I had was only with Android OS 4 KitKat there. And the phone feature works great. Matter of fact, all apps that are, that are digitally signed by Google or created by Google work absolutely fine. One of the issues that are driving me crazy is anything that is not produced by Google has a very hard time running in the background with this head unit. I don't know if that's something to do with my head unit, but I've been in constant contact with Eonon and basically trying to resolve this with the latest firmwares and whatnot, but I'll show you exactly what's happening here. So say for example you have this open screen here, you want to go to your apps and you want to do widgets. Okay, well, let's say we use a non-standard one here. For example, I have Power Amp as a MP3 player, and I'm going to throw that there. Now right off the bat, if we hit play, you can see nothing's happening. And for whatever reason, again, if it's not from Google, these apps are not functioning until you physically open them. Now all of a sudden, yay, that's going to start playing. So let's lower the volume here so we don't get slapped with copyright and all that fun stuff. And as you can see, it's playing. But the moment you get out of it, start doing other stuff, like for example, punching up the navigation, and you could select whatever you want for navigation. I just went with the standard one from Google Maps here. And you start trucking along, you go to, I don't know, Chrome and whatnot. So we'll visit a couple of sites here and we'll speed it up and watch what happens. All of a sudden it just stops. Now we've only had this running for what, I want to say maybe 2 minutes at most. As you can see, the icon for the playing the music is gone. If we go back, all of a sudden, according to the widget here, it says it's still playing, but if we keep on hitting play, nothing happens. The only way to get it back is to actually open the app. And then if you hit play here, then it resumes. So again, all third-party apps do not remain running in the background as soon as it's switched off. If it's YouTube or anything else from Google, then it all works fine. It's kind of frustrating because now, you know, it's an Android device and you would expect any app that you leave running would actually stay running in the background. And I don't know if it's a limitation to this unit only having 1 gig of RAM, but I mean, again, Eonon has been very helpful in providing me with the latest firmwares for this, and it's been a process, but we still haven't found a solution yet, and we're April 19th 2017, and yeah, it's a little bit challenging. So my workaround for this issue is if you do a search of apps created by Google for Android OS, you'll be kind of surprised what's out there. So for example, I'm a tech guy and I love stats on the screen. So I wanted weather, I wanted my MP3 or media player widget there, and of course, because it was third party, it did not want to load on boot up, and that's like very frustrating for me. So I was able to find that Google has two apps, one to provide weather and another one to be a media player. I would have used the one that came from Eonon, but the problem is I have all my music in a whole bunch of subfolders. And one, it doesn't scan the subfolders at all. It keeps you in the same folder. And two, the randomize or shuffle the music does not work. So at that point, it's like you're pulling out your hair trying to figure this out. I'll show you really quick. I used the Google News and Weather app. So I used the Google News and Weather app, and that provides widgets, which looks very similar to that on my other screen here. As far as the media player here, I'm using Play Music. That comes from Google as well. And then I have my standard shortcuts. So I always like a third-party Navi, and this one here is Navi Me. But again, I have to be careful. If I'm using this one, this app has to remain open during the entire time I'm using it, or else the same thing that happens to PowerAmp, as well as other third-party applications, it will close unexpectedly when you run it in the background. And then I made a couple of shortcuts here for, traffic in my area, my parking garage at work, and a shortcut back to my house. And yes, of course, there's VLC player, and if I'm in the mood to just get a nice visual aspect to a media player, I'll keep PowerAmp running there in forefront of the screen. As far as snappiness, this thing is definitely way better than my previous unit. The phone calls, conversations are pretty nice. The phone functionality works as expected. As you can see, I'm connected with Bluetooth, and you could also send audio over from Bluetooth on your phone or Android or iPhone device. And again, the Navi button, that's the physical, as well as this guy here on your main screen here, is also customizable to whatever navigational app that you would prefer. Here's a quick look at the radio, and looks a little bit more polished versus the one that we found on the KitKat Android OS there. And it's got its equalizer, programmable stations, and all that fun stuff. Another thing I wanted to show. So one of the big features about these newer head units from Eonon is the previous operating systems, Android OS 4 and Android OS 5, only had 1 gig as well as 2 gigs assigned for the actual OS partition, which is very frustrating when you're trying to install something from the Google Play Store and you find out there's not enough room, or if you try to download online maps, or I should say offline maps for your particular area, and then you come to find out that you have to copy it over to either the micro USB memory card that you put in there or USB sticks that came with the unit, and then you find the remainder of your 16 gigs just sitting there. I'm not sure what the rationale was, why they couldn't just make it one full partition with all the memory that was on board, but I think that's something that goes on behind the scenes there. But as you can see here, if we go to storage, I'm only using 2.5 gigs out of the total 12. And yes, it's 16 gigs, but the other portion of that is also used by Android OS. And here you can see I have a micro SD card inside there as well, which pretty much contains all my music for this head unit. Okay, so the final roundup for this device. Sorry for a longer than usual review and unboxing here, but we did get a response from Eonon. And we'll throw it up the screen right now, and it basically said in a nutshell that if you open up an app at the same time or apps in the background, it'll influence the speed of the head unit. The head unit will turn off some apps to ensure normal functionality of the head unit. Well, I think it kind of runs along the lines, after doing some research, that the memory management function that's built into Android 6 will do this. Now, the major problem with this is this unit only has 1 gig of RAM. So if Android OS detects that it's running low, it will start to kill off applications that it deems unnecessary. And it kind of makes sense why the ones that are are created by Google or signed by Google are staying or remaining open, and that's why the third-party apps are getting killed off the moment you close or throw them into the background, I should say. And because of this issue, the third-party software with our dash cam that we got for free, it will not remain open either. So unless you keep the DVR software for the dash cam running after like a minute to 2 minutes, that will also close. So that's not kind of a good situation here. And one final rant here is, I know I said earlier that I was a fan of the external Wi-Fi antenna, but I don't know, it just seems unnecessary. At the end of the day, you're pretty much going to just have your head unit connecting to your mobile hotspot on your phone, so it's really not necessary for this large obnoxious antenna. And I pretty much at this point threw that antenna inside my dash, and I've since not worried about it. Now, my unofficial quote-unquote fix for these applications closing in the background, you probably root the device, but I've unsuccessfully been able to do that and assign your third-party apps at a higher priority on Android OS, so this way it won't shut it off. So what's the final verdict with this head unit? Do these annoyances actually bring me to the point where I'm going to return to head unit? And it actually comes out to no. I actually still want to keep this head unit, believe it or not. As you saw with my workarounds, it seems to be playing out well, and I'm able to still listen to my personal musical library in the background while opening other apps. So that pretty much wraps it up here. As always, if you like what you see here, give this video a nice big like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and even join our forums. It would be greatly appreciated. As always, this is Dan from Southall Computing, and as always, until the next time.